It's 6:30 in the morning and I'm meeting Leslie Tay, one of Singapore's most popular food bloggers, for my first breakfast in town. He suggested an old-time favorite dish at the port's 24-hour food court frequented by dock workers. Leslie, you have to tell me, what are we doing at the dock so early in the morning?
Well, we're having this dish called bak kut teh, which is literally pork bone tea. Singapore being a trading port, there's a lot of work for coolies. So we had the Teochews on one side, the Hokkiens on the other side. These two clans were always fighting for the jobs. And the Teochews then came up with the idea that we needed something to boost the energy so that our workers will all have extra energy and look stronger than the other side.
Right.
And so they came out with this pork bone soup, which they spiced with lots of pepper. And they started to drink that. And then the Hokkiens looked onto them and said, hey, what are these guys eating? How come they all seem to be so energetic in the morning? And so they came out with their own version of bak kut teh. Now, it's a little bit of a debate as to who started first, but I'm Teochew.
So you're going the Teochew.
I'm going the Teochew way. It's a friendly sort of tussle nowadays, but in the good old days, it was quite serious because in Singapore, these clans, they stick to themselves. Because when they came from southern China, they knew nobody. So they had to join a clan. And the clan actually looks after them. They stayed at the clan houses.
And then you have friends.
And then all your friends were all Teochew, and all the Hokkiens were all Hokkiens, and they just stuck with themselves. And that's how our cuisine actually started to develop. So the Teochews will have their own different dishes, and the Hokkiens have their own different dishes.
Right.
But bak kut teh is just one of those dishes that both sides have their own version of the same dish. 我们要吃那个肉骨茶啦，就是正骨的。
Once we've ordered, it's time for tea, which even in this simple cafe is a tradition that demands respect.
So pork rib soup, right?
Yes.
It's called bak kut teh because, and the teh means tea.
Right.
So you have to have tea when you have bak kut teh.
Okay.
And this lady is just doing the tea ceremony for us.
Okay.
First of all, she's got to heat up the pot. And she's used a little bit of tea leaves to wash the pot first.
Okay.
So you get a bit of the flavor of the tea into the pot. And then you want to throw away the first part.
Okay.
Because you want to get rid of all that dust and whatever flavors that's in the pot. So that's the first round.
Okay.
And that's just to wash the tea leaves and to heat up the cups and wash the cups. You want to have small cups because you just want to have one mouthful and not have to leave the tea there when it gets cool.
And so it's always hot every time you make it, but it's time consuming. Thank you.
There you go. It's interesting to note that Chinese teacups do not have the handles. And that's because if you can't pick it up, then you shouldn't put it to your mouth.
Okay,
Just,
I want to try.
Try the tea and experience how the tea actually cleanses your palate and then leaves a nice floral aroma back at the back of your palate.
Oh, that's very nice.
Oh, here comes the pork rib soup.
Oh.
So I'm just going to pick this up, dip it in a little bit of the soy sauce and chili, and just go for it.
Okay.
It's really good. It's really, really nice today.
Whoa. That is peppery.
That's right.
I did not expect that. It looks so unassuming.
That's right. It's a lot of pepper, a lot of white pepper that goes into the soup.
Yeah.
It gives you that wake-up call in the
Yeah,
morning.
exactly. I am surprised. Wow, it's peppery. Lots of pork flavor.
There's a lot of smoothness that you can taste in the soup from all that oil and the marrow.
Ooh.
I'm actually really having it.
Fortified by my hearty breakfast, I'm ready to discover Singapore. Sir Stamford Raffles, the British officer who landed here in 1819, found only a tiny Malaysian fishing village on the banks of the Singapore River. By the late 1800s, Singapore was a thriving British colonial trade center, and tens of thousands of new immigrants poured into the island, creating the unique multicultural mix that is still the face of Singapore today.
Good morning.
The legendary Raffles Hotel has always attracted a glittering European crowd of officers, dignitaries, writers, and wealthy tourists looking for exotic adventure. But here at Raffles is also the historic trace of how Singapore became such a cultural melting pot. Many British officials arrived from India, another colony, and they brought their Indian staff, including cooks and kitchen help with them. At Raffles' oldest restaurant, the Tiffin Room, Indian cuisine has always been featured.
It's almost noon here in the Tiffin Room, and the chefs are just setting everything up behind us. But you have to see this. Look at this. This is so beautiful. This is an antique tiffin box itself. And what happens is the meals are placed inside these boxes, and these have been around here in the Raffles since the 1880s.
Raffles delivered tiffin boxes to colonial administrators in the early days before the hotel graduated to more luxurious dining arrangements. The hotel was established by the famous Armenian Sakis brothers, who introduced to Raffles electric fans, transport to and from the docks, fine dining, and innovations that marked them out as five-star hotel pioneers. Nowadays, you can dine elegantly in-house on classic Indian dishes, samosa pastries, chicken tikka, pickled chutneys, and yogurt sauces.
Looks like what we have here in these pots are a huge assortment of Indian curries. They have here like a black bean dal. This has got amazing cauliflower and carrots in it. Oh, one of my favorites, a palak paneer. This is like spinach mixed in with like cottage cheese. Healthy, right? You know, modern day Singapore really started here at the Raffles. You can see how all of the influences started trickling in from the Europeans to the Indians, and how they kind of came in and influenced the Chinese and Malay cuisine as well. And now you have modern day Singapore cuisine.
The Indian immigrants who came to Singapore generations ago stayed and prospered, just like the Chinese immigrants who poured in from mainland China and the native Malaysians from the surrounding islands. At first, they were required to live in officially separated ethnic neighborhoods by the government, but eventually the cultural boundaries started to blur, and so did the food boundaries. In Singapore, for example, although curry was originally an Indian import, curry is no longer just used by the Indians. Irene Jensen, a cookbook author, comes from Chinese and Eurasian roots, but she cherishes her Chinese grandmother's recipe for roti jala bread paired with a spicy chicken curry.
Well, I think we promised you a very tropical show here in Singapore, and in Singapore it rains. Why don't we start with the chicken curry first?
All right, we start with the chicken curry. I have marinated chicken, marinated with curry powder.
Okay.
Just curry powder. I left it set it in for 10 minutes. Okay, and I'm going to add in carrots, potatoes, onions, and curry leaves.
This is curry leaf, right? And so this is very unique. Everybody knows curry powder,
Correct.
but not about the curry leaf. Can I just try one?
Yes. It's a beautiful aroma, huh? Curry leaf is one of the most important ingredients in most curry. It gives the wonderful aroma, the taste, the feel, and sometimes we use it as a garnish as well. So when we fry it on and we just top it up on top of our curries, it's wonderful. Chicken stock. I added some water in the chicken stock so it's not too salty. So I'm going to add in a little chicken stock and let it simmer. Now I'm going to let it simmer for another 5 minutes before I add in the other ingredients as well.
Okay.
Okay. So it's simmering now. I'm going to add in a little salt.
Okay.
Okay. And this is coriander powder. Has a very strong aroma. And this one that we're adding on is raw cane sugar. Now there's something about the raw cane sugar, because when you put the raw cane sugar in, it gives a very tangy flavor in the curry. And then I have a pinch of pepper. And this is a light soya sauce. Okay. In our cooking, we use quite a bit of soya sauce. So we're going to simmer it for another 5 minutes. Okay, now it's time for me to put in the fresh tomatoes. Now, I don't want to overcook the tomatoes because I wanted the dish to have a very